This is the agenda for the training today. First, I would like to introduce myself, then something about the system requirement, small guidelines about the webinar as such, FIXPERIENCE software, and then we would go to questions and then answers. Let me introduce myself. My name is Tinu Thomas. I work as technical manager for Fisher UAE, and my user ID is fischer MEA. So first of all, we would show the time split. Now it's 11 o'clock. We would have the session till almost 11:45, and then we have a 10-minute question and answer session, followed by a 5-minute poll and feedback, because we definitely want your feedback to improve our services, our webinars, our trainings. So this is very important for us. So please spare 5 minutes in the end for this as well. Some small guidelines about webinar. Try to use only Google Chrome or Firefox for better experience. Try to avoid Internet Explorer because sometimes Internet Explorer is not so friendly with the software we use. Please do not do parallel downloads as it might affect your network speed and you would have some buffering issues. All questions we are looking forward to answer each and every question you post, but please excuse us till the end, so wherein we will answer each and every question you have. We would also try to give some gifts for some correct answers in between. So once I start the webinar, I hope this is the screen you would have. So you can go to maximize your screen so that you can have better experience. You would have a chat screen, which I'm happy most of you are using at the moment, where you can chat if you have any problems, or if you want any additional help, support from us, you can use it under the chat window. And then next to it is questions. So if you have any technical questions in the webinar, we recommend you post it only in questions. Why? Because if you post a question in chat, and by the end of the webinar, if we have, for example, 50 chat, maybe your question would get lost in between. So at the end of the webinar, I would directly go to questions tab and I would answer each one of your questions. So make sure any technical questions which you want us to be answered would be posted only on the questions tab. Polls. So this is also for feedback. You can rate the webinar based on how was your experience, which is very important for us because we want to improve our services based on your requirement and your feedback. So we are looking forward for that. One last thing but not least, please to enjoy the webinar to the maximum potential, we recommend that please put your mobile phones on silent so that nothing disturbs you in between. Even though we know you're all busy in your day-to-day work, but it is just half an hour to 45 minutes. If you would do that, I feel it's really useful for all of you. Thank you very much. Now I would go to the software. So all of you who have said that you are using the software might be aware of the software. When you open the software FIXPERIENCE, this is how you see. It is the main interface wherein the first thing you see, where I'm pointing the mouse, is some important information about the Fisher. It is like Fisher notice board. So any important information from Fisher which we would like to share our customers would appear here. Also, you have an option if you want to select any product or you want to go to Fisher website directly. On the left bottom side, you have mainly 3 buttons. The first button is for Internet Explorer. You click on Internet Explorer, you would be taken directly to Fisher website. And then the second thing is, if you are a first-time user of the software, it's always better that you click on the registration tab, which is a notepad with a pencil. If you click on that, you would see just basic information. So if you once you fill all these basic information, you would get a key to your registered email address. And then you have a key button. So you click on this key. You can copy the key which you received via email and paste it here and click on OK. You are registered for life. You can use this software for 50 years, 60 years as you like it. But if you don't register, the software is active only for 30 days. So within 30 days, you can use the software, but after 30 days, you would have restrictions. So I always advise that first time when you download the software, before you start doing it, it is a 5-minute process. Just register, copy the key and put it there, and then you can use the software n number of times, no problem. So as you can see, first things first, on the right, top right corner, you have an option for country. So you better to select UAE or whichever country you are from, so that you would see optimized products selected, handpicked for your region. And then on the left top corner, you can see an update button. So if you select automatic update, you don't have to worry about this. The software updates automatically, but if not, periodically, you can check on updates. So now, as I can see, updates are available. So if you click on updates, then all the new updates for the software, new features would be added to you. We would update it periodically, like every 1 month or so. We improve the software, we add new features to the software so that you would have better experience. Now, in Fisher Software FIXPERIENCE, it is a module which has 6 different softwares. The first software is called CFix, which is for designs in concrete and masonry. It is basically an anchor design tool which makes your design of anchor calculations very easy and super fast. We would see in detail how you can use better use of this. The second software is called a Railfix, which is mainly for handrail applications or balustrade fixings. So as you can see from the picture, it is a very useful tool for if you are into handrails or fixing of balustrades. Then we have a software called Fix, which is mainly for civil construction for structural connections using rebar in combination with Fisher high performance chemical anchors. We have another software called Fix. I would admit that this is the least I'm using because I don't stay in a country where there is a lot of wood construction. But of course, if you are in some part of Europe or Asia, maybe you would have wood construction and then you can use it. InstallFix is a software which is mainly to design hangers and supports, MEP supports, pipe clamps, duct supports, cable tray supports, and so on. And then we have a very useful, a simple but very useful tool. It is called MotorFix. MotorFix is a tool, it's basically an estimation tool which helps you calculate the volume of chemical anchor required for a project. Today, we won't try all 6 softwares because it would take probably 2 or 3 days if I want to explain all of them. So I have handpicked CFix, Railfix, and MotorFix to begin with. Before I begin the software, I want to check everything is okay so far. Are you all good? Good to proceed? Okay, I hope everything is fine. Okay, great. Now let me jump to the software, CFix. So you just need to double click CFix and then you would have a window which opens up like this. We call it the welcome window of CFix. This is where you land up. So the software as such is made so that you can finish your designs quickly, fastly, and with less confusion. So the trick is you start from left, you end at right side. So you can see different tabs from left side, top, which is substrate. The second tab is base plate. third is anchor layout, profile, loads, multiple design, load calculation, and printout. So we start with substrate, fill all the information as you go, and end up at load calculation and printout where you would get your report. So let's now dive little deep into each of these modules, each of these tabs. So the first thing, substrate, is the most important thing because this is where you want the anchor to be installed. Is it concrete? If it is concrete, is it cracked, non-cracked? Or is it masonry? If it is masonry, is it hollow block, solid block, AAC block? What is it? So this defines what or where are you going to make your drill hole and fix your anchors. Let's say you have fixing in concrete. So if it is concrete, as we all know, there could be two conditions, cracked or non-cracked. So let me be a very conservative man. I would select cracked concrete, and then you have to define what is the compressive strength of concrete or what is the grade of concrete. So you click on this value, you would see all the available codes from American to Europe to British standard to IS standards and so on. So you can select the appropriate standard where you want the concrete strength, compressive strength to be defined, or we have a tool called customized. Click on that. You can select your test specimen in cube or cylinder and specify the compressive strength. In this case, I wish to specify 40 Newton per mm square. Okay, and that is done. Then you have option of no or standard reinforcement. In most of the cases, we would use this unless you have dense reinforcement. And then also for the edge, if you have an edge of concrete, you are fixing it, your base plate on a column, then of course you would have at least two edges from two sides. So if you have additional reinforcement at the edge, straight or stirrups, you can specify it here. This would improve the capacity of the anchor, as you will see in some time. The next option is specify your drilling method. So you can choose from hammer drilling or diamond drilling, which is coring. So if you choose, let's say, diamond drilling, you would see only products approved for diamond drilling. So let's see, now you have a lot of products approved for diamond drilling. If you see hammer drilling, then you have even lot more. So this is basically a filter if you wish to see products specifically designed for your drilling method. The next thing, also an interesting topic, you can select a dry hole, water saturated hole, and standing water in hole. Dry hole is when the hole is 100% dry. Water saturated concrete is when you have water in the concrete is wet, and then you have standing water in the hole where you are installing in a hole where water is inside the hole itself. The next option is define the temperature of concrete. Always remember, this is not the ambient temperature. This is the substrate temperature or service temperature which your concrete is having. In normal cases, if you have an ambient temperature of 30, the concrete tends to be hotter or warmer. So you have to always define what is your concrete temperature. Honestly, this does not affect mechanical anchors or metal anchors, but it affects a lot in chemical anchors. So if you are a person, engineer designing chemical anchors, then take care that you are using the appropriate temperature. To make your job easier, what Fisher has done is we have selected the maximum temperature in the region, which is a long-term temperature of 50, short-term temperature of 72. So we have take care of this part, but just if you have higher temperatures, you have to consider this one. Let's go to base plate. So base plate is basically your plate which you are connecting using anchor to your concrete. So base plate, you can have option of different shapes. You can even design an anchor, single anchor with no base plate. You can have a circular base plate. You can have an elliptical base plate. You can also have a triangle base plate, a rectangle base plate, which is always a common requirement, hexagon, or a polygon. So polygon lets you define your base plate in any abnormal shape as you saw above. So we would come to that in a moment. You can, let me take, let's say, a rectangle base plate. Let me give it dimension 300 width and 400 breadth. You have option to rotate the base plate at 45-degree angles to match your requirement. Yeah. Okay. Now the next portion is called 2D plate editor. So once you click on 2D plate editor, this is the same option as polygon what we saw. This defines you, this gives you the power to modify the base plate, customize the base plate to any special requirement you have. So let me say I can modify it and make it a triangle, or I can make it something like this, which is very unique, I would say, a base plate like this. So this is basically like a toy. I really enjoy using this tool. You can really play with the software and design your base plate. You can make any random shape. You can create you can be creative with this tool. You can have a really flexible base plate to be designed according to your site requirement. And also some cases when you have a rectangle base plate and you have a concrete column coming at the corner, you might want to make a notch. So in this case also it is a very useful tool. You can create it the way you want. Just like this. So if you have something clashing with your base plate, so you cannot have a rectangle base plate, you want to make a notch, you can definitely design this in the software, and then you can have a more realistic base plate design. Okay. Next thing is the base plate thickness. The base plate thickness is basically the thickness of the base plate. You have two options. Either you can mention the thickness. I feel 8 mm is too less, so let me make it 10 mm. So you can use it either here, or you can go to the interface and directly change the value here. It is very easy. Then you have an option here called auto installation, pre-installation or post-installation. To make it simple and to avoid any confusion, keep it auto installation so the software takes it as a more conservative thing. The most important thing when you're designing a base plate is this value, which is called standoff option. So by default, the software assumes that your base plate is connected straight to the concrete. There is no gap between the plate and the concrete, which is not true in most of the cases. So you have an option of standoff. So if you have a grout, a non-string grout between the base plate and the concrete, you can go with this option where you can add a layer of grout, let's say 25 mm. So now as you can see, there is a grout of 25 mm between the plate and the concrete. This is very critical in designs, and if it is ignored, maybe your anchor might start bending because it is experiencing high bending moment. It makes a difference only when you have shear force. For tension, it might not affect the anchor capacity, but definitely for if you're having shear loads, it affects a lot. In standoff, we have also a few other options. So for example, if you don't have a grout in between, then you have an option to make a standoff like this. Let me make it a little more bigger so you can have a better view. So this is a standoff with nothing in between. It is pure standoff, as you can see in any lamp post fixed in Shakeside Road. So next time when you pass Shakeside Road, just have a look at the lamp post. You would see a standoff like this. Or we can have a standoff with 3 nuts, 1, 2, and 3. So you have different options. So again, you have a grout level, or no standoff, or you have just pure air in between. There's nothing filled between the gap. This is one of those options. And then you go to anchor layout. In anchor layout, it lets you choose the way your anchors are arranged in the base plate. So first things, if you go to the left side, you would see an option to select the design of anchors, the layout of anchors. You can have, minimum is 1, of course, and maximum defined by the software is 9. Even if you have more, you have an option called customized. If you go to customize, you can add anchors, any numbers, any locations. The software does not limit you to 9. You can go to even 10, 12, 20, up to you. So you have a tool where you can add all these values. If you have a very complicated design with probably, I don't know, 12 anchors, you can, if you have made an AutoCAD sketch, you can directly add in the coordinates on this screen and it automatically would be saved. Or we have an option called mirror, where to save some time, you can click on mirror button and both sides would have a duplicate. So you have to basically do only on one side and then it would be duplicated to the other side. Okay, that's how it is. To make the design a little simple, let me go with a standard arrangement of 4 anchors with a spacing of 300. 300 would be too much. 200 by 200. Okay. Now you have 2D plate editor, which we already saw. There is an option called slotted hole editor. Now, if you are designing with a base plate having slotted holes, you can definitely choose the slots. You can have slots either on 2 holes or on 4 holes, up to you. So you can design something like this, and the software will calculate accordingly. In the event of a slotted hole, basically the anchors at the slotted hole would be released in shear direction parallel to the slots. So this is what happens. Then you have an option for annular gap handling. So by default, it is at automatic, or you can select annular gap filled. So when you select annular gap filled, if you notice the anchor, you can see you have an orange ring around the anchor. Basically what it says is the gap between the anchor and the base plate should be 100% filled with a non-shrink mortar. It could be an epoxy based chemical or any non-shrink mortar available. You can use it, but sometimes you don't prefer this method, so you can tell the software, no, I don't want this option at all, by clicking annular gap not filled. So in any circumstances, you won't have annular gap filled. But if you want the software to advise if it is necessary or not necessary, go for automatic handling and the software does the job for you. Let's go to profile. Profile lets you define what is a profile which is transferring the load to the base plate. So as you can see, most of the European sizes are mentioned here, like I profiles, H profiles, and so on. Even L angles, T sections, Z profiles, square, circle, most of them available. But if you are having a shape or a dimension which is not part of this, still there is an option here called customize. You can customize your profile with, let's say in this case I want a profile which is 100 by 200. I can do that. with a flange thickness of 6 mm and a web thickness of 4 mm. Just from my mind, for an example, you can define that and the software would draw it for you. And also you have an option to rotate the profile in 45-degree angles. In any direction you can rotate it. Also, we have an option called profile eccentricity. If you want to move the profile away from the center of the base plate, you can do it in X or Y axis. So you can have 50 mm in X, 50 mm in Y. You would have a profile eccentricity, something like this. You also have option in anchor layout called anchor eccentricity, wherein you can also change the symmetricity of the anchor. You can make it asymmetric by moving the anchor away from the axis. You can customize it and you can modify it to match your requirement. So now we are at profile. The next thing is the most important thing, which is loads. In loads or design methods, the first option is to define what is the design method you prefer for anchor calculation. So the first method is called ETAG. ETAG is European Technical Authority Guideline, which is the oldest and the most popular code for design of anchors. The second option is called ENZO. ENZO is engineering solution developed by Fisher based on state-of-the-art FIB Bulletin 55, which makes your anchor design even more better. It takes it to the next level by designing more number of anchors, more flexibility, and so on. And then the latest code, which got released almost end of last year or beginning of this year, is the Eurocode 1992 Part 4, which is also available. And then you have a code for redundant fixings, where you are fixing of non-structural applications with sharing of loads like your pipe applications or cable trays. You have this option. You also have American code ACI 318 part 11 and ACI 318 part 14 for if you wish to design as per American codes. So all the options are available in the software. Let's stick to ETAG, which is the most popular code. And then design actions. By default, the software lets you calculate anchors with loads. Whatever load you tell the software assumes by default they are all having a load safety factor, which means if you have, let's take an example. If you want to have a tension of 10 kilonewton, which is an actual load, you multiply it with a load safety factor of 1.5 and put 15. So the software takes it as a design load. So it assumes that you have included a load safety factor. But you also have an option for characteristic actions, wherein you can tell the software the real load, the working load, and you can modify the safety factor you want. For example, I want for dead load 1.4. So the software automatically assumes the safety factor, and then job is done. You have option. Let me go back to design actions. Yes. Now the software is capable of doing a static design, under fire design, a seismic design, alternating design, or pulsating design, which is mainly dynamic loads. You can enter the loads manually, directly on the picture, on the diagram, or you have an option to add loads one by one, or you can import Excel load cases. If you have a load case, you can directly import using this tool. So there is an Excel file. We can share it with you also, the template. You click on this, select your Excel file with the load format, and all your loads, you can have multiple load combinations, and all of it would be loaded directly. Now to proceed, let me check. Yeah, multiple design. Multiple design is a tool if you want to see all the possible anchors working for the given criteria. So you can see these are the anchors passing the criteria, or you have a filter here also. If you want to see all anchors below 70% utilization, you can also do that here. You can filter the utilization and the anchors less than 75% would be appearing. And then the last option is load calculation and printout. Now, I forgot to mention a point. If you have edges, for example, this plate is connected on a concrete column 500 by 500. So your concrete thickness is 500 and you would have an edge distance of 150 both sides, because the total should be 500 on this side as well. Okay, so now you are fixing on a concrete column 500 thick and your total dimension is 500. So this is how you define the edge. And then you go here. There is a tool called FE design. It is finite element design. So the software is built in with a finite element module where you can choose your plate raw material, the steel grade. Let's take it as S275. You can tell the software to calculate the minimum thickness and it tells you, see, you require only 8 for your loads and your profile. So click on that, you would have 8 directly part of the software. You also have options to enter your address, your project details, etc. Now, let me ask you a question. We discussed here that we have an option where you can define an a standoff fixing. Let's say we have a standoff fixing of 30 Okay, why do you think it is very important to define this in the software rather than leaving it in this option? What would happen if you define if you design the calculation using this option, but inside you have this option? What do you think would go wrong? Any idea? What might happen if you don't consider standoff installation of anchors while you design? Okay, I can give you two options. You Okay, you are little correct, Mr. Amir, but something more specific I'm looking for. You have two options. It'll affect anchor length will differ, of course, but also thank you, Mr. Andrew, for participating. But also, what do you think from structural point of view? What might happen in the anchor capacity? Okay, yes, you both of you are almost correct, Hudson and Nasruddin. It'll affect the moment capacity of steel of the anchor. Irene is also correct. Amir is also correct. You would have reduced capacity, but it is only reduced capacity in shear because you have more bending moment on the steel. So the lever arm, yes, the lever arm is more. So you would have bending on the anchor, which is additional stress on the anchors. Thank you very much for being sporty and participating actively. So now let's go back to the last part, which is preview. Before preview, I would also like to show you something else. There's an option called CAD export. If you click on CAD export, the software is connecting to Fisher's server, and it'll generate a model of your case in 3D or 2D. So you can have different view available. Show 2D, you can also shift it to 2D or flip it to 2D, and then you can download it directly. So this is a very innovative feature of what we have developed. So it's easier for your design team to generate, or you can transfer your designs to your design team. They can easily copy the AutoCAD drawing and paste it in their drawings. Let's go to preview. In preview, you have to select, show PDF. This is how the software output looks like. You would see the anchor bolt selected, the embedment depth, the code which is used, the approval, and so on. And this is what we have done in the software. And then these are the details, like what is the concrete rate, what is the compressive strength, and so on. And then you have options for your loads, which is entered, what is the reaction on each anchor, and then it is doing the check for tension load. For example, here in this case you have steel pull out and concrete checks. The beauty about the software is you can even learn from the software. It is showing all the checks in formulas, not in just tables and numbers, so you can easily verify how the software is working, so you can have a better idea. And last but not least, you would also have the base plate check, which is attached to the calculation, so you can directly use this tool to calculate your base plate thickness, which makes your job much more easier. And then the last page would be about installation data, where you will see what is the model number of the product selected, what accessories you would require for installing this product, what are the drill hole diameters, what is the torque to be tightened. If it is chemical, you would also see the volume of chemical, and so on. And then the same page you would have base plate dimensions, so you would have coordinates of your profile and your base plate, which is very easy if you want to give it to a CNC machine for operation. That's it from the software, more or less. I would also quickly jump to the next software, which is Railfix. Railfix is a software mainly designed for handrail connections. It is linked to CFix, so the calculations more or less would be done by CFix, but you can model your handrail case here. For example, let me quickly design a case. Example, I have a parapet mounted handrail. It is external application and it is connected to the concrete slab. How is it connected to the concrete slab? Let me say it is on top. It is top mounted handrail. And how do you define the system? You want to define it as single post, multiple post, two post, whatever. Let me take it for single post. The post distance, what is the spacing between two posts, and what is the height from the finished floor height, thickness of finishing, infill height, and distance to the handrail, which is this distance. Base material, what is your concrete, what is your base plate, how much is your dimension. You can even have circular base plate. Anchor layout, how many anchors are there. Let's select 2 anchors for the time being. Loads, you also have an option here. You can select inward and outward forces. You can select vertical and horizontal forces. You can even add a flower box, which if you want to add additional weight of a flower box, you can also do that. And then the software would also calculate based on wind pressure. If you have a wind pressure outside of 1 kilonewton per meter square or 1 kPa, you can do that. You can also select height of the building. So all of this are possible, and then the software would do a design for you. Let me, okay, let me go to the printout and show you something interesting. Once you model all this in the handrail software, it would also help you design your rails. Sorry, I closed it by mistake. Okay, now this is the software. This is the input, what we have done, the load values, and so on. And then this is the reaction coming on the anchor. This is the anchor which is selected. This is proof of anchor, shear load, edge distance, and so on. So it's very easy using this software. You can define, you can also change the code if you wish to, and you can easily design your handrails to make it more what do I say? It is more interactive. You can directly see what is the point of loading, and the software calculates this loading directly to the base plate, and it will calculate the influence on the anchors, which is pretty quick. The last software I would like to show you is a simple software. Imagine you are installing 10,000 chemical anchors. You don't know how much bottles of chemical required. So let's say if you are installing M10 and the embedment depth of the chemical is 200 mm and you have 10,000 holes. So you have an option to include wastage. So let's include wastage because for sure there will be wastage at site. So the software is calculating. For sure you need to select which chemical from Fisher you are buying. Let's say you are using FISV product. So the software will tell you to complete this project, you would need 412 pieces. After you finish your design, you can take a printout. You can send it to your procurement team as a proof. How did you end up at 412 pieces? And then they can directly place an order to Fisher based on the selected product with complete article number and description. If you wish to buy accessories, also the accessories would be mentioned here. So this is a very easy tool if you want to calculate the volume required in a project for chemical anchors. That was my short presentation and introduction about fischer FIXPERIENCE. Now, since we have almost done, let us go back to the questions what you have posted. Yeah, Mr. Ramkumar is the only person I see with a question. Is there any option to verify the effect due to the shear key pocket in concrete? Okay. Ramkumar, this is a very special requirement. It is not part of the anchor code, but it could be verified manually outside the software, but software does not calculate it because the software is based on European Technical Authority guideline, wherein there is no option to consider shear key pockets, but shear key pockets definitely improve the condition for anchors, which we can do. How about connection design in Fisher? Mr. Hassan, what exactly is a connection design? Is it steel to concrete connection? Okay, no problem. Since we are not getting a response for this, did he respond? Okay, Mr. Hassan, I guess you were asking about the design connection from steel to concrete. So you just need to take the reactions from your third-party software like RStab. Okay, you want to do a design between steel connections. Unfortunately, in the Fisher software, it does not design steel to steel connections. It designs only steel to concrete or steel to blockwork connections. For steel to steel connections, unfortunately, the software does not do it. Now, there was a question earlier on. What happens to the anchor if you have standoff? Uh, the answer which won the prize is for Ahmad Badr. Uh, most of you replied the correct answer, but his reply was more precise and up to the point. So Mr. Ahmad Badr is a winner for today. We would be contacting you to hand over the prize. Congratulations, Mr. Ahmad. Do you have any other questions? Okay, there is a question by Mr. Mrityunjay. I would like to know solutions while anchor fail while there is no sufficient edge distance. Mr. Mrityunjay, what happens is when you have a case where you have limited edge distance, you have to find another solution either by increasing more number of anchors or using another anchor which can take less edge distance, or using uh, a modification in your base plate, let's say shifting some anchors to the other side of the base material. There are different options available, so it is case by case. We can design this case uh, considering all the parameters. Does the software take the advantage of the available reinforcement when calculating concrete cone failure? There is a factor which the software assumes in concrete cone failure, which is the reason when I go to the software, I showed the option in substrate as edge reinforcement, no standard reinforcement, and dense reinforcement. So if concrete cone failure is decisive, then the software will take this as a factor, but most likely it will not make a huge difference in the anchor calculation. If you're designing with ACI, you have more flexibility. In ACI, you can define that your concrete breakout will not happen, and then the software omits this check. Mr. Ahmad Badr, why there is no database for Egypt? I mean, why Egypt is not listed in the countries list? Okay, what I understand is on the countries, you would see countries where Fisher has got a direct office. This is what I understand, because then you have direct Fisher staff and they can understand the local regulations well. Let me just check with my headquarters what is the reason Egypt is not there. We can see the possibility of adding Egypt also on under the countries list. But the product range, if you may ask, I would say it is more or less similar what we sell in Egypt, similar to UAE. So if you select UAE, that would also be appropriate. But definitely, we would give a feedback to our headquarters to add Egypt as a country in the list. Do you have any other questions? Okay. Now, we kindly request your 5-minute time to go to the poll option. Please go to the poll option and rate our webinar. Please be honest. You can be brutal as well. Give your honest feedback, what you like, what you don't like, and so on. This is basically to improve. If in case you didn't like something about my presentation, please rate it, so it's a chance for me to improve when I see you next time. Mr. Amir, Pakistan is not in the list also, and I cannot register using my Pakistan address. In this case, I would please send your requirement, the error message which you get to my email address. I'm mentioning my email address as a response to your question. Please send your a snapshot of your error message to this email address, and I can forward this to Germany, and I can see how we can solve this issue. Please, before you leave, please again, I request you to give us your feedback to improve our services. Sure. Yes, the software will calculate the wind pressure, Mr. Hassan. What it does is when you give a wind value, we are giving pressure and suction values. So the software will multiply this with the area covered by each post. It will convert into point load at the point of connection of anchors. So it is converting the wind load into a concentrated load on the anchor point. Once again, thank you very much for joining us today. I hope the session was informative and interesting for you. If you have any designs, any clarifications, any questions, I would definitely mention my email address in chat. Please feel free to contact me, and I'll be more than happy to assist you. Okay, I think we are mostly done since I'm not getting any questions. Thank you very much. This is the end of the webinar. Hope to see you all for the next webinar, which would be in January. We will come up with an exciting topic, an interesting topic. So hope you would all try to join us, and we would see next time. Till then, have a great day. Thank you for joining. Goodbye.